This story may or may not have come across your way because it hasn't really made its rounds yet, because it just came out today and I'm recording this video on April 16th, 2023, where you have this 16-year-old by the name of Ralph Yarl who was shot twice by this white man after he rung his doorbell. Basically, he rung his doorbell because he went to the wrong spot. He was going somewhere and he rung the wrong doorbell to the wrong house. And this white guy got his gun and shot this boy twice. Miraculously, he survived, considering where he shot him at. Like, many will probably think he should have died. And honestly, when I learned of where he got shot at, and when you'll find out for yourself, you will probably think that, wow, he probably should have died from this. And the crazy part about this story is that it reminds me, I believe, of one or maybe two stories where something like this has happened before. And I believe Renisha McBride was one of them, where she, it was at night. She was looking for assistance. She knocked on the door, rung the doorbell, and a white guy came to the door and shot her and killed her. And I believe it was another incident where it involved the boy, but it didn't involve him knocking on the door, but it involved him getting killed because he went to this party or something like that, and the guy got annoyed from the noise, so he brought his gun out there and just started shooting, and he ended up shooting the boy. Then you have the story I recently did about the two black girls who was attacked by this guy in their driveway, wherever it was. He just came out there and attacked them. Then of course you have that Asian man who attacked this little black boy and shot him after first coming after him and some kids in the neighborhood with an axe or a baseball bat or whatever it was, and then he got his gun and shot through the window, and one of the bullet hit the boy. So as you can see, they love attacking black kids. Now all this boy did was ring the doorbell, but he got the wrong house. And this guy decided, you came to the wrong home, or asked him what he was looking for, and he could have told him where it was at if he knew. But no, that was too much for this guy. He's going to grab his gun and shoot him twice. Why? Did you think the boy was coming to rob you? Because, there's stigma that black people, especially black boys and men, just have to be wanting to rob somebody. Now I'm going to go ahead and read this article coming from the Kansas City Defender. It says community members are demanding justice after a white man in Kansas City shot a black boy by the name of Ralph Yarl twice for ringing the doorbell of the wrong home. Ralph Yarl, a 16-year-old black boy, was shot twice by a white man in North Kansas City after accidentally ringing the doorbell of the wrong home while attempting to pick up his sibling. The white man reportedly shot Ralph in the head through the glass door. Then when Yarl was already bleeding out on the ground, shot him again. The family has described it as a hate crime, and community members are calling for justice for the young victim. Like I said, he's very lucky to be alive, considering he got shot in the head once and was still able to move, and then got shot again and is still alive. This was not an error. This was a hate crime. You don't shoot a child in the head because he rang your doorbell. The fact that the police said it was an error is why America is the way that it is, said Dr. Faith Spoonmore, the aunt of Ralph Yarl. Reports indicate that the white man was taken to the police headquarters to briefly to provide a statement, but was released shortly after without charge. Now, they took him down there for a statement after he shot this black boy twice and once in the head, damn near killing him. But they want to take his statement and then release him and then even charge him. And I don't think we even know the person's name. Yarl's family is outraged that the perpetrator has not been held accountable. I'm not surprised. According to Dr. Spoonmore, this man intended to kill an innocent child simply because he rang the doorbell of the wrong house. He looked him in the face and shot him, and the individual is free to go about his day as if he did a great deed. While my nephew Ralph Yarl is a great kid, an intelligent kid, a black boy is left with so many broken pieces. Lee Merritt, a nationally recognized civil rights lawyer who has represented Ahmaud Arbery and Cameron Lamb, has taken up the case. Sean King, or Little Talcum X as we like to call him, a well-known activist and journalist, is also assisting in the case. Since the story was first reported by the Kansas City Defender yesterday, it has gone viral across social media platforms, reaching millions of people. A protest is scheduled for today as community members continue to demand justice for Ralph Yarl. The Yarl family is urging supporters to help spread awareness about the case and bring attention to the issue of racial violence in America. And this is a developing story, and more updates will be provided as they become available. That is insane right there, but it's interesting that this boy is still alive. I think that's the miracle in the whole thing, is because he should have, I'm going to just leave it right there. Y'all can fill in the blank. He most likely should have not been here right now, but thankfully that's not the case. But yeah, another day in America. Surprise, surprise. And by the way, the family has already set up a GoFundMe. I'm going to leave the link to that down below. I believe they're trying to reach a goal of $500,000. The last time I saw it, it was at 65,000 plus. So they still have some more ways to go before they can reach their goal. And I hope that hopefully by the time I get this video up, they will be more closer to their goal. But I will definitely leave the link down below. I will pin it at the top of the comment section and maybe also in the description, so you can go and donate to that as well. But that is crazy right here. You can't even go and ring the doorbell without possibly getting shot. But like I said, it's not surprising because this has happened before. I just gave you 3 instances, well, 1 instance of this being very similar, you know, to Renisha McBride, but also other instances where kids are playing outside and they get attacked by these PC demonic entities. All he was doing was to go pick up his sibling. He just didn't know, he just went to the wrong home. Like I said at the beginning, all the guy had to do was say, oh, the house you're looking for is right here. Oh, you just got to keep going down this way or up this way. That's it. But oh no, let me go get my gun and fire off a couple of rounds. This person did it with no shame to go get his gun and shoot this boy. I keep telling people they are their ancestors. There is no way. You know, there's a famous saying, you do not negotiate with terrorists. The piece of shit that did this to this boy is a fucking terrorist. And the fact that they took him down to the police station to give a statement and then let him go and he wasn't charged. And don't even get me started on the piss poor police who said, oh, this was an error. They said his decision was made in error. What? So you mean to tell me him going to get his gun loaded and then fire off 2 shots, that was an error? Basically saying, oh, it was a mistake. It was an accident. No, that was intentional. You do not just come to the door and with your gun unless you feel. But here's the thing with it. Here's the trick bag. They're going to say, oh, he felt threatened. I bet you they're going to try to say, oh, he feared for his life, or that he looked like someone was coming to rob him. What? The boy's only 16. What was he going to come and rob you for? And he had no idea probably who this boy was. He just saw a black boy come to the door and just had to go after him. And it's interesting they mentioned Ahmaud Arbery because that's pretty much on the same thing they tried to get him for. Because he was just walking around the neighborhood, just looking around, just minding his business. And what happened? You got these 3 hillbilly hicks having to come after him in that pickup truck and feel like they're doing God's work or God's bidding. Let's eliminate the niggas. Let's go nigga hunting today. And that's exactly what they did. And look at the position they're in right now. The same thing that happened to those 3 needs to happen to this guy. If we even figure out who the hell he is. Because we don't know a name. We don't know a face. He hasn't been charged with anything. And they're saying that it was an error. I will not be in the least bit surprised if they don't charge him with anything at all. And they just let him go on about his day or his ways. Because that is what the fabric of this society, of this establishment that we live in today. And then you got people, some who look like us, that will tell us that racism and white supremacy does not exist in America. Going to sit up there and tell us with a straight face and lie and say that there's no racism and white supremacy in America. If you don't get out of here with that bullshit and stop insulting all of our intelligence, then what the hell would you call this? Would this white guy have done this to a white boy that came in and just rang his damn bell? Probably not. This dude probably already had a preconceived notion of what this kid was before he even opened the door. Clearly he did, because he came to the door with a gun. He probably had one of those Ring devices where you can see on your phone or any type of camera you have in your home, any monitor, and saw a black boy come to his door and say, oh, this big black boogeyman, he's at the door, gotta get him. Remember, Tamir Rice was only 12 years old, popped in like 0.5 seconds, and then they said he was 18. Mike Brown, big guy, big boy. So he just had to be older than what he was. What do I always tell y'all? They love to age black children, especially black boys. They'll never see black boys a lot of the times as children, especially when they reach to a certain age. When they start maturing, you know, as they say, the balls drop, their voice gets a little bit deeper, and some other things. Start feeling themselves a little bit. But they're still minors. But in this society, they're seen as grown men. And there's a reason for that. The big black boogeyman trope can't work without it. And that's probably what he saw when he saw this boy at his door. He was ready. He had a bloodlust to kill that day. Thankfully, he wasn't successful. But unfortunately, because this boy was shot in the head, he might have some brain damage from this. Now, I'm not going to show the pictures of him laid up in the hospital bed because they do have images. Well, one picture in particular where he's laid up in the hospital bed and he has a bandage around his head from where he got shot and he's hooked up to some tubes. I didn't read anything about him falling into a coma, which is a good thing. Hopefully that's the case and that he hasn't. But he's going to have a long road to recovery. But what does not make this good is the fact that the monster that did this is just still walking free. Remember, he has no charges. We don't know who he is. So this guy could possibly get away with attempted murder. Welcome to America. So I'm adding this part in the next day after I recorded the first 12 minutes and 46, I think, seconds of the video that I had. Now, initially in that video, it said at that time when I recorded that, they didn't release the name of the person who did this. We didn't know who it was. We just automatically had to assume that we just knew it was a PC man that did this. Well, now we have the identity of the person who did it. This old decrepit looking creature that you see on your screen that is sure most likely to give Freddy nightmares. Name is Andrew Lester. He is 84 years of age and he is currently in custody for the crime in which he has committed, and he was charged with assault in the first degree and armed criminal action, and they're both felonies. And I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. The only reason I think they actually arrested him is because the community was outraged by this. Naturally, those who watched it was putting the pressure on them to finally arrest him. And my thing is this: if this thing just flew under the radar, they probably wouldn't have arrested. He would have still been walking around as a free man. And that just shows you the type of America black people live in, because it should not take pressure from the community to have someone arrested for committing something like this. Like I said, this boy is very lucky to be alive, especially from that headshot. So they got him arrested. They have him charged with 2 felony counts. I don't know what is going to come of this. Don't take it easy on him because of his age, because you know they like to try to say, oh, he's too old. Bullshit. If they can go after Bill Cosby, and Bill Cosby and him are in the same age bracket, then surely they can definitely find something, get him hemmed up on the 2 charges he has, considering he could have killed a child. But that's pretty much all that we have right now as it pertains to this story. So this is an update right now as far as it pertains to Andrew Lester. It says Ralph Yarl, man accused of shooting teen on doorstep, pleads not guilty. Of course he would. But something tells me if he pleads guilty, y'all better be worried. And you know why I say that? Because whenever someone pleads guilty to something they're obviously guilty of, that means that plea deal is incoming. They're going to try to offer up that plea deal. I think I even read somewhere where he was trying to they were trying to push for him to do the stand your ground thing, because they were trying to push him to do self-defense. And he's like, that's going to be nearly impossible because the boy was not a threat to you. But, you know, stranger things have happened. Another thing that I just recently heard on top of this is that he has been released from jail where he was at. So now he's back home until he has to show back up in court. So, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting story going forward, and it's going to be one I guess we're going to have to follow and see what the outcome of it is. Well, this story just continues to get even more interesting by the day, and it's a good thing I haven't uploaded anything yet, because I wanted to add on to much of the story as I possibly could. So you see right here is a picture of a man by the name of Klint Ludwig, who was the grandson of Andrew Lester, and he spoke with Don Lemon. I'm going to let y'all go ahead and hear what Klint had to say about his grandfather. And to be honest, what he says surprises none of us, but it actually says something very interesting, which I will mention at the end of his interview.
Joining us now is Klint Ludwig. He is the grandson of Andrew Lester, and we always like to get a perspective on thinking of someone who knows him, why they might do this. So, Klint, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Don. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So what is your reaction? What was your reaction when you heard that your grandfather shot Ralph Yarl for ringing his doorbell?
I was disgusted. I thought it was terrible. Myself and my family stand with Ralph Yarl and seeking justice. This is a horrible tragedy. It never should have happened.
Folks are going to want to know, why are you speaking out and apparently against your grandfather?
It's the right thing to do. This country happens over and over again where people get away with killing unarmed, innocent black people, and I would have had the same energy for any other case like I've had over and over again in this country, like I said. But so it's the right thing to do. People need to speak out and not make any excuses for this kind of behavior and this violence.
So you said for killing innocent black people. The prosecutor in this case has suggested that there was a racial component to it. Do you believe your grandfather is racist?
I believe he holds racist tendencies and beliefs.
Why do you say that?
He's just a stock American Christian male. It's older, that's just how they are. It's the conspiracies and weird random racist things that they say, and it doesn't make sense, but they're just scared.
Now, listen, you're generalizing a lot here about, you said older Christian white males, but what do you mean by that? What do you mean they're scared? Talk to me more, please.
It's just, I feel like a lot of people of that generation are caught up in this 24-hour news cycle of fear and paranoia perpetuated by some other news stations, and he was fully into that, sit and watch Fox News all day, every day, blaring in his living room. And I think that stuff really kind of reinforces this negative view of minority groups and leads people to be it doesn't necessarily lead people to be racist, but it reinforces and galvanizes racist people and their beliefs.
Now, apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, Klint, you said that your grandfather would say or do things, apparently that you did not subscribe to that caused you to distance yourself from him. Say and do things like what?
That's right. A lot of it was the kind of QAnon level conspiracies about election denying, and then it got really weird with some Fauci dogs. I really didn't know what that meant, but I would push back on some of this stuff, and he couldn't handle being pushed back on, and at a certain point, we kind of lost touch. And I think it was more of his choice than mine.
Did he say or do things that you found offensive about minorities or people of color?
Yes, he would say some things. I think I can't remember exactly now all that happened, but I know he had something about, had a really hot take about abortion and how something about black women getting abortions. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I said, I don't really want to talk to you about this anymore. This is racist and it's dumb. So let's move on. And I pushed back, and he didn't like that either at the time.
Okay, so y'all just heard that right there. And like I said, that was the conversation or the interview that Don Lemon was having with this man, Klint Ludwig, who again is the grandson of Andrew Lester. While he was speaking out against his grandfather, I can tell that when Don was trying to pull stuff out of him, like when he was saying he would say things or do certain things, and when Don was asking him what would he say or do, I can tell he was kind of holding back. And I know some of y'all listening right now are saying the same thing, like he was kind of holding back on what he was saying, and it's almost like we got a guess of what he was saying, because I was expecting him to say, oh, he was saying the N-word, or he was saying certain things like, you know, from a time period when he was around maybe his grandson's age. Because you got to keep in mind, Andrew Lester is an 84-year-old man. He's an 84-year-old man, white man at that, in America. He is in the same age bracket as my grandmother. So this man was born in like the 30s, like in the 1930s. So when Jim Crow was really at its peak, like the 50s and 60s, around that time, even though it had spawned before that, but in the 50s and 60s was really where it was at its peak. He was like in his teenage years, excuse me, teenage years going into his 20s, so to speak. So he saw a lot of things and most likely participated in a lot of things as well. A lot of beliefs he was most likely holding from then, he still holds on to now. He mentioned about him watching certain news programs. I already knew what he was talking about before he even said Fox News. I said, oh, in my mind, but I didn't want to interrupt the audio. And I knew he was going to say Fox News. And that's exactly what he said. He would sit around watching Fox News all day, you know, believing in these conspiracy theories. And he mentioned QAnon and all types of things like that. Now, while I'm glad he actually did say something, and we do know that there's a racial component there, I wish he would have expounded more instead of holding back. I mean, if you've already gotten this far as to say that your grandfather is this, you might as well go all the way. Because now we're left putting the pieces of the puzzle together, trying to figure out what it is you were trying to say without you actually saying it. But while he did say this, I will give him kudos for this. He did something that Ralph Yarl's own family did not do, and that was call out the racial component of what Andrew Lester did. Now, here's a person who was his grandson who grew up around him and knew exactly what this man was all about. So this is of no shock to him. That's why it was so easy for him to come on to CNN and talk to Don Lemon about this. Even though he was holding back a little bit, you could tell he was not reluctant to get on there and actually say, hey, this is who he is. But to add insult to injury, there was another piece of information that came out about Andrew Lester. Has nothing to do with this case, by the way, but it has something to do with his wife. So as you can see by this headline, and it was posted April 20, 2023, is Andrew Lester's ex-wife, I know I said wife, but his ex-wife, recalls his fit of rage, violence. I was always scared of him. So this right here shows that Andrew Lester not only has racist tendencies, according to his grandson, but he also has violent tendencies as this is coming from his wife. So this man just has lifelong violent tendencies, period. I'm going to read to y'all what it says. The ex-wife of octogenarian charged with shooting Ralph Yarl said he was prone to violence during their troubled 14-year marriage, and that it doesn't surprise her that he pulled a gun on a teenage boy when the child mistakenly showed up at his address. Mary Clayton, who was 81, who was married to Andrew Lester when she was young, has not spoken to him in decades and didn't even recognize him when he appeared in the news for allegedly shooting Yarl, who had shown up at his address instead of a one block over to pick up his siblings. Clayton, who had 3 children with Lester, said one of her daughters called her in California on Tuesday in shock of the shooting. I was always scared of him. It doesn't surprise me what happened, Clayton told the newspaper. She said her ex-husband had a tendency to erupt in anger and would smash items in their home during his fits of fury, adding that cops told her he could do whatever he wanted in his home. So this woman would call the cops on him, and they told her that, in so many words, there's nothing we can do, or better yet, nothing we're going to do. We're just going to let this man wild out. And see, that is what led to the, I guess you can say, the in-home terrorism that she had to deal with in that marriage, and probably amongst their kids. And by them not doing anything then, it's led to this. Again, they never want to do anything until it gets to an extreme point. I guess him doing what he was doing with his wife wasn't extreme enough. He had to go out and damn near kill a kid in order for them to say, okay, you got us. Now we can finally arrest him. But even then, when you look back at the story itself, it took them like 2 days for them to finally arrest him. They just been letting this man skate on by just because they wanted to. This is what I'm talking about when I say the flaw in white people's on coldness. This was another white woman being terrorized and beaten by her ex-husband. And they didn't do anything to protect her. So when a lot of people say, oh, they protect their women, well, here's an example, one of many examples where that did not happen. Because she was married to a man that was abusive to her, and the other men that would look just like her husband didn't help her either. She's actually fortunate and lucky herself to be alive, considering they was in a marriage for 14 years. But let me continue. On Wednesday, the Kansas City, Missouri man pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree assault and armed criminal action, felonies that carry 10 to 30 years of life in prison. And that still boggles my mind because those are some low-ball sentences. Charge. Not even an attempted murder charge. Lester shot Yarl twice, once in the head and once in the arm, after the boy mistakenly knocked on his door to pick up his younger twin brothers who were actually at a nearby home. Klint Ludwig, age 28, who y'all just heard from, a grandson of the suspect, has expressed his support for Yarl and his family. He goes on to say, I was horrified. I thought it was horrible. It was inexcusable and it was wrong. The grandson, who lives in the Kansas City area, said he felt terribly for Yarl and was relieved that he survived and is recovering from his injuries. Ludwig also criticized police and Clay County prosecutor Zachary Thompson for the way they handled the initial investigation in not charging his grandfather immediately. The only reason why he is now receiving charges in an investigation is being held was because of community outreach to bring attention to this, which is something I alluded to in the earlier part of the video. The response has been great. It's been amazing to see the solidarity coming together as a community. Thompson has said the shooting had a racial component without elaborating. When asked if he considers Lester to be racist, Ludwig said, I believe that there have been positions that he's held that have been bigoted or sort of disparaging. He attributed Lester's views to his staunch conservative views. He says it's anybody who gets an abortion is a murderer, and fatherless black families are the reason why crime exists in this country. It's stuff everybody heard at the Thanksgiving table every year, Love would say. Now, I didn't hear that part. That must have been cut off because the clip that y'all heard, it was only like 3 minutes of some change behind it. But that's additional stuff that he said. But I don't know why they didn't keep that in there. I would have loved to hear him say that. But apparently, his grandfather said that too. It says 2 other relatives told the Star they didn't believe Lester was a racist and thought he likely fired at Yarl out of fear. Of course, you're going to have something that's going to be on code. Ludwig said his grandfather's paranoia escalated in the last 2 years. I hesitate to say he's got more extreme because all the stuff has been extreme. And it's been the same story for decades and generation to generation of people believing the same things. It's just nowadays people are acting on it a little bit more. He said Lester, a military veteran, was an avid hunter and long-time gun owner. Back in his younger days, he would be involved in shooting sports, and I don't necessarily have a problem with using guns and having guns, Ludwig said. It's the paranoia that I think is a real issue, he told the paper. Ralph did nothing wrong by showing up at the wrong house, which is an honest and easy mistake, and the fact that it was almost a death sentence is disgusting. Meanwhile, a nephew of Lester's called his uncle a decent man. I didn't really know what to think when I heard about this. Dean Smith of Jewel Ridge, Virginia, told the Star. It just kind of shocked me. You don't expect something like that. He said Lester was home alone because his wife had been living at a rehab facility, probably to get away from him. 84 years old, living by himself, Lester said, adding that it would be hard for me to believe that he is a racist. So that's the metric system now. If he lives alone and he's 84, there's no way that he could be a racist. Okay. He's worked with so many people. He's been a supervisor in all over different races. He just a really straightforward, everyday person. He was just retired military trying to get on with life, he said. Oh, boo-hoo. Now, that's not coming from the Klint Ludwig. That's coming from one of their on-code relatives, because Klint Ludwig is the off-code one. Whenever a white person gets off-code, I just call him a rebel. So he's the rebel. But that one that I was reading from right there, the one that says that, he's 84, he's a military vet, he's living alone, so there's just no way he could be racist. He worked around all different groups of people. They always like to use that as some kind of a metric system to say that this person is, or if they are not, a racist, but that's a bunch of BS. So yeah, this is very interesting. So we pretty much are all up to date right now with this. If there's anything else that comes from this story, I might have to just incorporate it into a live stream, because it's a lot that's coming out. But definitely, in a way, kudos to the grandson for saying something, and also kudos to the ex-wife for saying something as well, because we're learning more. It's called building a case. It's called building a case. What will come of this? I have no clues.